The Light Beyond Maple Street. In the quiet town of Maplewood, Emma Hayes is trying to piece her life back together after the sudden loss of her husband, Daniel. Once a bright journalist, Emma now spends her days teaching creative writing at the local high school, hiding her pain behind gentle smiles. But when a mysterious letter arrives, one written by Daniel before his death, Emma begins a journey through grief, forgiveness, and the fragile beauty of starting over. Along the way, she rediscovers not only Daniel's truth, but her own courage to live again. Chapter 1: The Letter. The morning light slipped softly through the lace curtains of Emma's kitchen, painting the wooden floor with golden streaks. Outside, the quiet hum of Maplewood stirred awake, a mail truck turning the corner, the sound of a distant lawn mower, and the faint laughter of kids walking to school. Emma stirred her coffee absent-mindedly. The spoon clinked against the mug in a steady rhythm, her mind far away. 2 years had passed since Daniel's accident, yet his absence still filled every corner of the house. The clock ticked, the fridge hummed, but the silence between them felt like a living thing. She sat at the small round table, the same one where Daniel used to read the morning paper, and tried to remember what his voice sounded like when he laughed. She could almost hear it, faintly, before it dissolved into the air again. Then came the knock. A soft, uncertain tap at the door. Emma hesitated. Hardly anyone visited this early. She placed her coffee down and walked across the room, her bare feet silent on the old wooden floor. When she opened the door, the mail carrier stood there, an older man with kind eyes and a Maplewood postal badge on his chest. .556667888888. "Morning, Miss Hayes," he said, handing her a small envelope. "This one's been a long time coming." He smiled, adjusting his cap. "Postmark says 2 years ago. Got lost in the system, I guess. Happens sometimes." Before she could reply, he tipped his hat and left. Emma closed the door slowly and turned the envelope in her hands. Her name was written in familiar handwriting, slanted, a little uneven Daniel's handwriting. Her breath caught. For a moment, the world narrowed to that small piece of paper. The edges were yellowed, the ink faded slightly, but the signature at the bottom was unmistakable, from Daniel. Her fingers trembled as she sat down again. The seal was already half torn, as if time itself had been trying to open it for her. She slid her thumb under the flap and unfolded the letter carefully. Inside, a single page. And at the top, in Daniel's neat cursive, "For when you're ready to see the light again." Emma's eyes blurred. The words swam before her, but she forced herself to keep reading. "Emma, if you're reading this, I guess I didn't make it back to you. I'm sorry, more than words could ever hold. I know you'll try to keep everything together, to stay strong for everyone else. But please, promise me you won't forget how to live for yourself. Go back to Maple Street. Go back to the stories. They'll help you find me and maybe help you find you again. Love always. Daniel." The paper trembled in her hands. She pressed it to her chest and let the tears come, silent but unstoppable. For the first time in months, she didn't try to hold them back. When she finally looked up, the morning light had shifted, pouring fully into the room. Dust danced in the air like tiny pieces of memory. She looked toward the window, toward Maple Street, just beyond her home. That was where she and Daniel had lived before moving here. The house they'd renovated together, the one they left behind after his accident because it hurt too much to stay. "Go back to Maple Street," she whispered, repeating his words. The thought terrified her. But beneath the fear, something else stirred, a flicker of warmth, fragile but real. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She sat by the window, the letter beside her, and watched the streetlights fade into dawn. For the first time in a long while, she felt like maybe, just maybe, Daniel was still guiding her home. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 2. Return to Maple Street. The next morning, the town of Maplewood seemed wrapped in fog. The mist curled around the trees like a soft veil, muffling the sounds of waking life. Emma stood at her front door, suitcase beside her, Daniel's letter tucked carefully into the inside pocket of her coat. She hadn't slept. The thought of returning to Maple Street, the place she'd once called home, filled her with both dread and longing. But Daniel's words echoed in her mind. Go back to Maple Street. Go back to the stories. Maybe he meant her writing. Maybe he meant their memories. Maybe both. The drive was only 40 minutes, but it felt like crossing a lifetime. Every mile carried her deeper into the past, familiar roads, faded billboards, and the small town signs she and Daniel used to laugh at. When she turned onto Maple Street, her heart clenched. The house stood just as she remembered, pale blue with white trim, the front porch sagging slightly where Daniel always promised to fix it. The garden was wild now, overrun with weeds and wildflowers. A for sale sign leaned crookedly near the mailbox, its paint peeling. Emma parked at the curb and sat for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. The air was still. Even the birds seemed quiet, as if holding their breath with her. Finally, she stepped out. The front gate creaked when she pushed it open. The smell of rain and old wood filled the air. As she climbed the porch steps, she half expected Daniel to swing open the door and smile the way he always did, that small, sideways grin that said everything was going to be okay. But the door stayed closed. Her hand trembled as she turned the key she still carried, a habit she'd never let go. The lock clicked. The door opened with a slow sigh. Inside, the air smelled of dust and time. Light filtered through the windows in soft, broken beams. The furniture was covered with white sheets, ghostly shapes in the silence. Emma walked through the living room, her fingers brushing against the old piano. A faint layer of dust coated the keys, but she could still see the small scratch on the edge, the one Daniel made the night they moved in, carrying it together and laughing until they dropped it. She smiled, tears burning her eyes. In the kitchen, everything was frozen in time, the same cabinets, the same chipped countertop. She reached into the drawer where Daniel used to keep his notebooks. To her surprise, one was still there, a small brown leather journal, the kind he always carried. She opened it. Inside, his handwriting filled the pages, short thoughts, story ideas, sketches of places they'd visited. But near the back, she found something different. A single entry dated 2 weeks before his death. Emma's losing herself in the silence. I wish she could see what I see, how strong she is, how her heart carries light even when it breaks. If something happens to me, I need her to remember that our story isn't over. Her breath caught again. The words blurred as tears welled up, but she kept reading. Daniel had drawn a small map under the note, a map of Maplewood, with an X marked behind their old house. Emma stared at it, frowning. Behind the house? What could possibly be there? She grabbed her jacket and stepped outside. The backyard was overgrown, wild grass brushing her knees, the air thick with the smell of earth after rain. She followed the map's markings, counting her steps the way Daniel used to do when setting up his photography shots. Near the far fence, she stopped. There, half buried beneath a pile of leaves and ivy, was a small wooden box. The lid was cracked and weathered, but when she brushed the dirt away, she saw Daniel's initials carved into the top. Inside, she found a stack of old Polaroids. Each photo was a moment, a memory. Emma laughing on the porch, Daniel holding their dog, the two of them sitting beneath the oak tree in the backyard, their faces glowing with summer light. And at the bottom, another note. These are the stories, Em. The ones we lived. The ones I hope you'll finish. When the light feels too far away, look here, it's closer than you think. Her hands shook. She sank down in the grass, surrounded by the ghosts of her own life, and let herself cry. But this time, the tears didn't feel like loss. They felt like remembering. She stayed there for a long time, until the afternoon sun broke through the clouds. Light spilled over the fence and across her face, warm and steady. When she finally stood, she looked back at her house, and whispered, "I'm home." And for the first time since Daniel's death, she meant it. End of Chapter 2. Chapter 3: Echoes of the Past. The wind whispered through the tall oak tree in the backyard, rustling the leaves like faint laughter. Emma held Daniel's wooden box close, the Polaroids pressed against her chest. Each image told a story she thought she had forgotten, yet here they were, frozen in time, demanding to be remembered. She sat on the grass, the dampness seeping through her jeans, and spread the photographs before her. One by one, they revealed the life she and Daniel had shared: birthdays, late-night walks, quiet afternoons in the sun. But then, something caught her eye. A photograph she didn't recognize. It was taken in the early morning light, Daniel standing in the backyard, holding a small, folded piece of paper in his hand. His expression was solemn, almost worried. And in the background, barely visible, Emma's old writing desk, the one she had left behind in their first apartment, sat near the window, untouched. Emma frowned. She didn't remember this day. She flipped through the other photos, but none of them showed any clue about what Daniel was holding. Her pulse quickened. Why had he taken this photo? She pulled the note from the bottom of the box and reread Daniel's words. These are the stories, Em. The ones we lived. The ones I hope you'll finish. When the light feels too far away, look here, it's closer than you think. Closer than I think, she whispered, staring at the photo. The folded paper in his hand looked like a letter, or maybe a message he didn't want anyone else to see. Her curiosity overwhelmed her grief. She stood and walked toward the old oak tree, brushing past the wildflowers that had grown unchecked. The yard was quiet except for the distant hum of traffic from the main street and the soft chirping of sparrows in the tree branches. Emma knelt beside the roots where the photograph had been taken. She dug lightly through the loose earth and, after a few minutes, her fingers grazed something hard. She pulled it out, a small tin box, rusty around the edges, but sturdy. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside were more photographs and, on top, a folded piece of paper. With a deep breath, She unfolded it. Daniel's handwriting filled the page. Emma, if you're reading this, then you've found the box. There are things I couldn't say out loud, fears I couldn't share. I wanted to protect you, but in doing so, I left you questions. I'm sorry. The truth is, I had been struggling with something I never told you. I didn't want it to shadow our lives, but I see now that honesty is the only way forward. In these photos, you'll find pieces of the past I kept from you, and in them, you'll find the reason why I left so suddenly. Don't be angry. Don't be sad. I want you to use this, the stories, the memories, the truth to live fully. You have the courage I could only dream to have. Always yours, Daniel. Emma's hands trembled. She scanned the photographs inside the tin. Most were familiar, places they had visited, friends they had made, quiet moments shared under the fading sunlight. But a few were different. One showed Daniel in the hospital, smiling weakly, a folder of papers clutched to his chest. Another was him speaking with someone she didn't recognize, a doctor, perhaps, or a counselor. And then there was a final image, one that made her heart stop, a photograph of herself, taken without her knowing, sitting at her writing desk, tears staining the pages of a story she hadn't shown anyone. Her throat tightened. Daniel had been documenting her pain, silently, carefully, to understand her grief, to leave her a map through it. Tears blurred her vision, but this time they were different. Not just sorrow, but a strange mix of awe and gratitude. Daniel had known her so completely, loved her so fiercely, that even in death, he guided her hand. Emma stood and gazed at the horizon. Maple Street lay quiet before her, houses bathed in golden afternoon light. Somewhere beyond, life continued, ordinary and fragile, yet full of possibilities. She slipped the photographs back into the tin and held it close. For the first time, she felt not the weight of loss, but the warmth of being seen completely, truly, and forever. She knew now that returning to Maple Street wasn't about reliving the past. It was about reclaiming her future, guided by the love and stories Daniel had left behind. With a final glance at the backyard, she whispered into the breeze, "I see you, Daniel, and I'm ready." End of Chapter 3. Chapter 4, Letters and Memories. The next morning, the air in Maplewood smelled of fresh rain and earth, crisp and clean. Emma carried Daniel's tin box and her small suitcase to the front porch, hesitating for a moment. She hadn't planned on seeing anyone yet, but something inside her whispered that it was time to reconnect, time to face the town that had shaped so many of their memories. As she stepped onto the street, familiar sights struck her. The corner bakery, where she and Daniel used to pick up cinnamon rolls, the small bookshop with its weathered wooden sign, the park where children laughed and ran under the sun. It all seemed untouched by time, yet changed in subtle ways. Life had gone on. Emma's first stop was the post office. She hadn't expected anyone to recognize her, but as she entered, Mrs. Green, the older woman who had delivered letters for decades, smiled immediately. "Emma Hayes," she said, her eyes sparkling. "Is that really you?" Emma nodded, her voice catching. "Hi, Mrs. Green. It's been a while." "Oh, darling, I heard about Daniel," Mrs. Green said softly. "I'm so sorry. Come, let me give you a hug." Emma accepted the embrace, feeling the warmth of familiarity wash over her. The kindness of the town, even after all this time, was a balm she hadn't realized she needed. After leaving the post office, Emma wandered to the small cafe where she and Daniel had spent many lazy afternoons. The bell above the door jingled as she entered, and she was greeted by Mr. Thompson, the owner, who remembered everything, every customer, every story. "Emma, you look, well, it's so good to see you," he said, his voice filled with genuine surprise. "Can I get you a coffee?" "On the house, of course." She smiled. "Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I'd like that." As she sipped the warm drink, she unfolded Daniel's letter again. His words seemed to guide her, whispering courage and hope. Use the stories, the memories, the truth to live fully. The afternoon passed slowly. Emma walked along Maple Street, stopping by the places she and Daniel had loved. She noticed how much had changed: new families moving in, old shops replaced with cafes and boutiques, but the heartbeat of the town remained the same. By evening, Emma returned to her old house. She set Daniel's tin box on the kitchen table and opened it again. Inside, she discovered more letters he had written to her, ones she had never seen before. Each letter spoke of love, encouragement, and the belief that she could find happiness again, even without him by her side. One letter caught her attention. "Emma, I know leaving me has been hard, harder than I could ever express. But I need you to know that life is full of moments waiting to be lived. Don't shy away from them. Don't let fear keep you from joy. There's a friend I've always trusted, someone who will help you find your footing again. You'll know them when you see them. Love always. Daniel." Emma read the notes several times, pondering who this mysterious friend could be. A spark of curiosity flickered inside her, mingling with the warmth of Daniel's love. The next day, she began exploring the town more intentionally, walking down familiar streets and revisiting memories she had tucked away. Everywhere she went, she felt Daniel's presence, a gentle reminder that life, even after tragedy, still had stories worth telling. By the end of the week, Emma had reconnected with a few old friends, each encounter bringing laughter, tears, and a sense of belonging. For the first time in 2 years, she felt the weight of grief lifting, replaced by a cautious optimism. One afternoon, as she walked through the park, she noticed a small figure sitting on a bench, sketching in a notebook. Something about the posture, the careful movements, and the quiet focus felt familiar. Emma approached slowly, her heart beating faster than she expected. As she drew closer, the figure looked up, and her breath caught. It was someone from her past, someone Daniel had trusted to guide her forward. "Emma?" the person asked, a hint of surprise in their voice. "It's been a long time." Emma nodded, a tentative smile forming. "Yes, it has." And for the first time, she felt that maybe, just maybe, she was ready to step fully into the future Daniel had always believed she deserved. End of Chapter 4. Chapter 5: The Friend. The sun was dipping behind the hills of Maplewood, painting the sky in shades of orange and rose. Emma stood at the edge of the park, her suitcase forgotten on the bench behind her, staring at the figure who had called her name. The person, a woman in her late 30s, with kind, observant eyes and a gentle smile, closed her sketchbook and stood. She extended her hand. "Emma Hayes," she said softly. "I've been expecting you." Emma hesitated, then shook her hand. I'm not sure what to say." Daniel mentioned you. The woman nodded. Yes, I'm Mara Bennett. Daniel and I have been friends for years. He wanted me to help guide you, to help you find your footing again. He trusted me to remind you of who you are, even when it feels like the world has forgotten. Emma swallowed hard, the weight of grief and curiosity pressing together. I don't know if I'm ready, she admitted. It's been so hard. Mara's eyes softened. I know. And you don't have to be ready right away. All you have to do is start. Step by step. Daniel left you the stories, the letters, the memories, but living them, truly living again, is your journey. Emma nodded slowly, unsure of how to begin. Where do we start? Wherever you need, Mara said, glancing around the park. But I think the first step is to face the past, not to dwell there, but to understand it, to see it as part of the story that brought you here. They walked together down Maple Street, past familiar shops and houses, the late afternoon light casting long shadows. Mara didn't rush her, allowing Emma to notice things she had forgotten: the little bookstore with hand-painted signs, the cafe where Daniel had whispered plans for their future, the park bench where they had spent countless sunsets together. At one point, Mara stopped in front of the old community center. This is where Daniel first shared his stories with the town, she said. He loved helping people express themselves, their fears, their dreams. You were always his inspiration. He wanted you to remember that your story matters, too. Emma's fingers traced the worn bricks. I've forgotten how to write, she admitted quietly. Every time I try, it feels empty. Mara smiled. Then let's start small. No pressure. Just a line, a memory, a thought. Let the words come from your heart, not your expectations. Daniel always believed your voice could heal, just like it healed him. Emma closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. She felt the wind on her face, smelled the faint scent of jasmine from the gardens nearby, and let a single memory surface: Daniel laughing on the porch, the warmth of his hand in hers. She opened her notebook and wrote, "The light comes softly, even through the darkest storms. I can feel it now, and it is enough." Mara glanced at the line and nodded approvingly. Good. That's the first step. They walked for hours, sharing stories and memories, sometimes laughing, sometimes crying. Emma found herself talking about Daniel in ways she hadn't dared before, and Mara listened without judgment, guiding her gently toward understanding and acceptance. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting Maple Street in hues of gold and purple, Emma felt a strange sense of peace. For the first time since Daniel's death, she didn't feel entirely alone. She had Mara, yes, but more importantly, she had herself, her memories, her emotions, her voice. Thank you, Emma said softly as they reached the bench where her suitcase still rested. Mara smiled. Thank Daniel. And then thank yourself. You've begun the journey he always hoped you would. Emma nodded, her heart lighter, her spirit beginning to mend. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would still be tears, still be questions, still be moments of doubt. But she also knew this. With every step, with every story she embraced, she was reclaiming her life. And somewhere in the quiet of Maplewood, Daniel's presence lingered, a gentle whisper in the wind, a soft light beyond the trees, reminding her that love, though lost in one form, never truly leaves. End of Chapter 5. Chapter 6, The First Story. The morning sun streamed through the lace curtains, scattering light across the wooden floor of Emma's old bedroom. She had moved back in fully now, leaving her suitcase unpacked for the first few days, as if hesitation could somehow delay the reality of living here again. But today felt different, lighter, more purposeful. Mara had arrived early, carrying a stack of journals and a thermos of coffee. "Ready?" she asked with a gentle smile. Emma nodded, though her stomach fluttered nervously. Writing again felt daunting. It had been months, years, since she had let her words flow freely. Fear of emptiness, of inadequacy, had kept her away. "Start with anything," Mara said, setting the thermos and notebooks on the desk. "A memory, a feeling, a scene. Don't think too much. Let it come." Emma took a deep breath and opened a blank page. She stared at it for what felt like eternity, the pen hovering over the paper. Then, almost without thinking, she wrote, "The sky was never the same after he left, but the light still found its way through the clouds." She paused, feeling a lump in her throat. It was simple, yet it carried the weight of everything she had endured. Mara watched silently, letting her find her own rhythm. "Good," she said finally. "Now go on. Write what comes after that sentence. Don't worry about grammar or style. Just write what's inside you." Emma's hand moved tentatively at first, then with growing confidence. She wrote about the mornings she and Daniel spent in the garden, laughing over small mistakes in their cooking. She wrote about the quiet nights, the shared glances that spoke more than words ever could. She wrote about her loneliness, her grief, her fears, and slowly, painfully, the tiny sparks of hope that had begun to reappear since returning to Maple Street. Hours passed unnoticed. The sunlight shifted from golden morning to warm afternoon, spilling across the desk. Mara occasionally sipped her coffee, offering a nod or a gentle word of encouragement, never interrupting Emma's flow. Finally, Emma set the pen down and leaned back, exhausted but exhilarated. The page was full, a mixture of fragmented memories and raw emotion. She looked at Mara with wide eyes. I did it," she whispered. "I actually wrote something." Mara smiled warmly. "Yes, and that's just the beginning. The first story is always the hardest. But now you've started. You've honored Daniel, yourself, and the life you're reclaiming." Emma's gaze drifted to the window, to the sunlit street outside. For the first time in months, she didn't feel paralyzed by loss. She felt connected to Daniel's memory, to her town, to herself. Mara placed a hand on her shoulder. "There will be days when the words don't come, and that's okay. But remember this moment, the moment you realized you still have a voice. That voice is powerful, Emma, and your stories will guide you forward." Emma nodded, tears prickling her eyes, but this time they were mixed with joy. She felt a sense of accomplishment, of purpose. The pen had become a lifeline, a bridge from her grief to the light she had been searching for. Later that evening, she placed the finished pages in Daniel's tin box, alongside the photographs and letters. The box had once been a repository of memories, carefully preserved by him. Now it also contained her own words, the first step in building a life that honored both past and future. Sitting on the porch, Emma inhaled the cool evening air. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, children laughed, and the wind whispered through the trees. The world continued, indifferent yet beautiful. And she was part of it again, fully present, fully alive. She smiled softly to herself. "This is just the beginning," she said aloud. "The first story, but not the last." And for the first time in a long while, the thought of tomorrow didn't frighten her. It felt like an invitation. End of chapter 6. Final chapter, The Light Beyond Maple Street. Autumn had settled over Maplewood, painting the trees in shades of amber, crimson, and gold. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and distant wood smoke. Emma walked slowly down Maple Street, the tin box tucked safely under her arm. Every step felt lighter than the last, every breath a reminder that she had survived and that she could thrive. Mara walked beside her, smiling quietly. "You've come a long way," she said. Emma nodded, glancing at the familiar houses, the small cafe, the park bench bathed in soft afternoon light. "I have," she admitted. "And it's not just me. It's all of this, the town, the memories, your guidance. Daniel. He's everywhere, in every story, every memory." Mara reached out and gently touched her shoulder. "He left you a map, yes, but you walked it yourself. You've faced grief, embraced your past, and found your voice again. That's courage, Emma." Emma smiled, her eyes misting over with tears that were now more of joy than sorrow. She thought of Daniel, his laughter, his words, his love, and she felt a warmth that reached deep inside, filling the spaces that grief had hollowed out. Back at her house, Emma opened the tin box. The photographs, the letters, and now her own stories rested together, a tapestry of life, love, and remembrance. She carefully arranged them, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. Sitting at her writing desk, she placed a fresh sheet of paper in front of her. With a deep breath, she picked up her pen. The words came easily this time, flowing from her heart, unburdened by fear. Life continues. It hurts, it heals, and it teaches us to love in ways we never imagined. Daniel's story is a part of mine, and mine is now my own. I will live, I will love, and I will write, because that is how we keep the light alive. Hours passed as she wrote, the room glowing softly with the fading light of day. She paused occasionally, reading her words aloud to the empty room, hearing the echo of her own voice as if Daniel himself were listening. Later that evening, she stepped outside onto the porch. The sky was a canvas of purples and oranges, and the quiet hum of Maplewood surrounded her. Children laughed in the distance, leaves rustled in the wind, and the world felt alive once more. Emma inhaled deeply. The grief that had once felt like a chain around her heart now seemed like a gentle reminder of the love she had experienced, the life she had shared, and the future she was creating. She looked toward the horizon, where the last rays of sunlight glimmered. "I see you, Daniel," she whispered. "I always will. And I'm ready to live, to love, to write, and to let the light guide me forward." Mara appeared beside her, silently sharing the moment. Emma turned to her and smiled. "Thank you for everything." Mara nodded, her eyes glinting with warmth. "He would be proud. And so am I." Emma stepped back, looking over the town, the streets, the memories woven into every corner. Maple Street wasn't just a place anymore. It was a testament to love, loss, courage, and the resilience of the human heart. As night fell, the stars emerged, scattered like diamonds across the velvet sky. And in that quiet, infinite light, Emma felt a profound peace, knowing that life, though fragile and fleeting, was beautiful, full of stories yet to be written and love that never truly leaves. She closed her eyes and whispered one final time, a promise and a farewell. "I will carry you, Daniel, and I will live." The wind stirred gently, rustling the leaves as if carrying his reply, and somewhere beyond the horizon, the light continued unbroken, enduring, and eternal. End of story. The Light Beyond Maple Street. Thanks for watching, guys. Please subscribe for more true emotional grandma story video. Bye bye.